So a lot of us have been spending a bit more time at home recently, and for those of us with two EVs or those of us who've newly purchased EVs, this may mean a bit of a challenge. Now, if you're used to driving an EV and you've had one a long time, the chances are you have a level 2 charger. But if you're living in the US and you're using the granny lead that came with your car, the 110 volt charger that plugs into a regular outlet, that can be a bit of a struggle. Certainly if you are not doing a lot of miles a day, it is possible, as we demonstrated using our BMW i3 back before we moved house. But since we've moved, we've been using our level 2 charger and open EVSE. But then, of course, we've now been stuck at home for a while, and what we've done for the time being has been using a 110 volt charger plugged in all the time. As we've talked about before on the channel, that is less than ideal because 110 volt chargers are not really intended for regular use, and the outlets can get hot, particularly in the US with the little tiny pins. Not that I'm mocking US plugs, you understand. So it can be a solution, but it's not an ideal one. And particularly for those who are new to EVs, if you're looking at buying an EV, or if you already have one but you haven't got a level 2 charger, the cost of adding one can be quite a lot, depending on how far you park your car from your electrical panel or fuse box. When we had one installed, it cost us about $300. But when our family member was looking at getting a charger installed and it was a long way from the electrical panel, they were charged, or they were quoted a figure of around $1,000. And that on top of the purchase price of an EV, particularly if you're struggling to buy the car in the first place and you're at the lower end of the market, that can be really quite prohibitive. So this is actually a problem that we faced. When I installed the electrical panel on our house, I used a second-hand breaker, and it tends to trip. Tends to trip if it's wet or dry, if there's an A in the day. It's a bit of a pain. So we actually have really only one functioning NEMA 1450 outlet, and Nikki very generously sent us her old Siemens VersaCharge unit, so we now have two chargers but one outlet. Now, how can we resolve that situation? Well, handily, we actually had been talking to NeoCharge, who make this unit here, about reviewing one of their units, and it's not QVC. I know it looks like QVC. So it has two versions. One version comes with a NEMA 1450 outlet on both sides, and the second one comes with a dryer outlet. And that means that you can plug in your dryer and your car and it will intelligently switch between both. Or if, like us, you have two chargers, it will allow you to charge one car and then the other car. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get it out of the box and we're going to install it. We'll see what's in the box. So inside the box you have the unit itself, you have a bracket to hold it to the wall, and you have screws to hold the bracket to the outlet, and you have screws to hold the unit to the bracket. You also have a set of instructions, although to be honest it's pretty simple. Basically, having turned off the breaker at the fuse panel, unplug anything that's already plugged into the 220 volt outlet. Make sure the back of the NeoCharge and the outlet match, that's kind of important, and then unscrew the two top screws on the faceplate that hold the faceplate to the outlet. Use the bracket screws that come with the NeoCharge to screw in the new bracket at the top of the faceplate, plug the NeoCharge in, pop in the two thumb screws at either side which holds the NeoCharge onto the mounting bracket, and then just plug in your two EVSEs, or your dryer and your EVSE. Typically you'll want your dryer to be the primary, or your EVSE that you use for your primary vehicle to be the primary, and then your other EVSE can plug into the other side. Turn on your breaker again, and you should be able to charge both cars at the same time, depending on what you've set your current limit to. So we've had this unit about a week now, and it does pretty much exactly what it says on the tin. It switches dynamically between the primary and the secondary outlets, depending on the amount of current being drawn from each one. Obviously, we had thought about this ahead of time, so we have the VersaCharge unit, which isn't an intelligent charger, and we have the Open EVSE, which is. The Open EVSE we can control from an app. If you plugged it in with the Open EVSE on the secondary unit, then when the VersaCharge was charging, it would turn off the open EVSE, which would mean that we couldn't access it through the web app, which is a little bit awkward. But other than that, it's worked great. By turning down the charging current on both units, it's been possible to charge both cars at the same time. Obviously, we haven't done a lot of driving because of the lockdown, but we've done enough to test the unit out, and I have to say it works great. The only real downside I found with this unit is that it is not waterproof. So this has to live inside, and while we have an outlet inside and the VersaCharge kind of inside, we actually wanted it outside. So we are probably going to switch and change things up when we have another breaker. If you are living in rented accommodation where you are having to share a dryer outlet, this could be a lifesaver. It could save you from enormous arguments with your housemates because you're charging your car when they need to use the dryer. So they'll switch between the two and save you that whole hassle. So this is a pre-production unit, and there is apparently essentially no difference between this and the final one, apart from I have blank numbers, blank X's where my FCC ID should be, and there should be a number there. But assuming no other changes, this thing is great. I mean, it does exactly what it says it will do, with those caveats about if you have a connected charger, one of them could be switched off, and that might make them inaccessible, or potentially you could lose settings if your battery backup dies in that time, but it really shouldn't. The one thing that I can't test, which would be really interesting to test, is that NeoCharge plan to release an app for this, so that you can control it. You can dynamically control it, so you can tell it to switch between the two outlets, and then you can also potentially schedule charging, things like that. But obviously, if you do have a charger that you have to set the rate, maybe through a potentiometer, you open the box and you twiddle something, as opposed to through that front screen, then you are going to be rate limiting your two chargers to allow them both to be on at the same time, or one of them charges and then the other one, and you just have to be aware that they're going to be charging sequentially, not at the same time. With those caveats in place, yeah, if you are in a position where you only have one outlet, you have two chargers, or you are using a dryer outlet and you're having to split your time plugging and unplugging, which isn't a great idea anyway, particularly the NEMA 1450 doesn't really like being unplugged lots, then I would consider one of these. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. It's been great to have you here. And if you like what we do, then please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell and share our videos. It really helps when we get more interaction, helps us get promoted by YouTube, and that's particularly useful in these trying times. And of course, you can always buy us a coffee on Ko-fi. It's really nice on those days when we're out and about, which will hopefully come again soon, to get a coffee knowing it comes from one of you lovely viewers. And scrolling by on the right are our Patreon members. Thank you so much to each and every one of them. We couldn't do what we do without their support. And we have some really fantastic bonuses available at the Starman and our self-driving levels of support. So why not look at the Patreon page and see about supporting us that little bit more if you can. It's really an enormous help. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Keep evolving.